we're set to go. It is 7 o'clock, and I'm going to start with first of all, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. This is a special event, so glad to see all of you here. I'm Lisa Whalen. I'm the mayor, and to my left are council members Kathleen Refkin, Peter Vickery, Claudia Lacey, and Brian Govern. And then on the end, we have staff, Gary Peters, our public works superintendent, Ali Paulfus, our assistant administrator. Now, to my right, we have Jasper Krugel, who is our city administrator, Brian Grimm, our finance director, David Abel, our community development director, and then on the end, we have our chief of police. For so many years, I said Paul Falls, and so I have to switch now. Craig Squires. I'm sorry, Craig. I'll get used to it. So welcome, everyone. And then we have a couple of people joining us remotely. We have Ann Meyerhoff, who is our city clerk, and Sarah Sansala, who is our attorney with Kennedy and Graven. First, I'd like to ask that you all join me in Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So next, I'm looking for approval of the agenda. We have one minor change. Hennepin County Sheriff Dewana Witt will not be able to be here this evening, so we're going to remove that from the agenda. Otherwise, are there any other changes or additions or subtractions? Hearing none, then, is there a motion to approve the agenda with that one change?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Refkin. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Govern. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. So next, so we'll start out with a very special presentation tonight, and that is swearing in of our public safety supervisors. I'm going to hand it over to Chief Squires.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, council members, City Administrator Krugel, city staff, law enforcement brothers and sisters, family and friends. It's with great honor that we take part today in the swearing in of the Minnetrista Police Command staff. This moment marks not just a transition of roles, but a reaffirmation of our commitment to service and community. As we gather here, I want to assure you that while we may now occupy new positions, the department is in excellent hands. Together as supervisors, we have nearly 70 years of law enforcement experience. As a department, we have around 200 years of work experience. Our department backgrounds are rich and diverse, encompassing titles that span the spectrum of law enforcement specialties. Some of these include detective, school resource officer, SWAT operator, SWAT commander, drug enforcement agent, field training officer, and various other police instructors. Yet beyond our titles and experience, we share a singular vision. Our mission is clear. We are dedicated to making Minnetrista and St. Bonifacius exceptional places to live, work, and play. We understand that our duty extends far beyond enforcement. It is about building trust, fostering relationships, and serving our community with dedication and pride. As we embark on this journey together, we hold dear the principle that wisdom is knowing the right path to take, and integrity is taking it. It is a privilege for the four of us to stand before you tonight, and again, take a vow to protect. So thank you, Mayor and Council. Thanks to our family who supported us on our mission. I ask that Deputy Chief Cummins, Sergeant Brown, and Sergeant Griggs join me up here. And Madam Mayor, would you please do the honors of swearing us in?
I would love to.
Thank you.
Sideways? No, face me.
Yeah.
She can get it better.
Yeah.
Raise your hand and repeat after me. On my honor, as a leader of the Minnetrista Public Safety Department.
As a leader of the Minnetrista Public Safety Department,
I will uphold my badge, my integrity, my character, and the public trust. I will hold myself and others accountable. I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. The laws of the state of Minnesota. The values of this community. And the policies of our department.
help me God. One more. One more. That's perfect. All right.
Lisa, you should have wore heels.
I did.
Could have got her boxed.
3-inch.
I'll bring you a step stool.
A step.
Hey, where the hell goes? Here for the meeting. Have fun.
Oh, wait, I need
That's
my.
all the fun.
Gonna grab Lisa's glasses.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
All right, so next on the agenda is the audit presentation from our financial auditors, Clifton Allen Larson. So we have with us this evening Grace Trzynski and Chris Knopik. I got it right. So welcome and thank you for being here this evening and presenting the final audit for 2024. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor and the council, for allowing us some time to present the audit results for the year ended December 31st, 2024. I am kind of sad that everybody left.
Because it's so exciting.
I saw how we finished this, so. Thank you very much for the introduction. Just real briefly, Chris Knopik, I'm a principal with Clifton Larson Allen. I've been with CLA now for almost 21 years, a little over that, working with local governments across the state of Minnesota and across the country my entire career. So I have Grace Trzynski with me, who is the senior in charge for the city's audit this year, and we're going to go through and kind of divide and conquer the PowerPoint presentation here tonight. So we'll go real briefly through some required communications. We'll go through some audit results. What we call emergent issues are really just some of the new upcoming accounting standards that the city is going to be required to follow over the next couple of years, and then some financial results after that as well. So looking at our first part of our required communication, really what we're looking at here is just a reminder that an audit provides reasonable, not absolute assurance as to the results within your financial statements. Absolute assurance means that we would have to audit 100% of the transactions for an entity, and that's just not feasible, whether it's time commitment, monetarily, it's just not feasible. So it's reasonable assurance. To get that reasonable assurance, what we are doing is we use a risk-based audit approach, which means through discussions internally amongst our team, to a member or two of the city council, as well as our knowledge of local governments and talking to city staff, we develop a risk-based audit approach where we get to spend the majority of our time and emphasis on those areas that we deem risky. We would like to let you know also that within your financial statements, estimates are just a natural part of your financial statements. Estimates for the city include like collectability of receivables, the useful lives of your capital assets, the pension liability, post-employment benefit liability, compensated absences. And our responsibility with those is really to make sure they're reasonable, they're supported, there's no management bias, and we would have to let you know if there was anything that we deemed particularly sensitive with those or a high degree of uncertainty, which there is none for the city. We also want to provide an update to let you know there was 2 new governmental accounting standards that were adopted this year. We use the acronym GASB, that's the board, so Governmental Accounting Standard Board. So this year statement number 100 was adopted in 101. 100 really is just a financial statement presentation standard. You'll see if you go through your financial statements this year, what we've kind of started terming a ghost column. So when a fund moves from major to non-major, now you'll see essentially a column of all zeros where it used to be reported, a beginning fund balance, essentially a line that says restatement to move that to its new designation, whether it was major or non-major. So just a very slight change in that. It's supposed to help make the readability of the financial statements easier for readers. Statement 101 was related to compensated absences. So compensated absences is accrued vacation, sick, comp time, earned safe and sick time fall into all of that. And the standard that governments used prior to 101 was GASB statement number 16. So that was 30 some years ago. So 30 years ago, GASB didn't understand the idea of PTO and all these different type of lead banks that were out there at the time. So now under 101, we had to look at that. What it ended up doing with the adoption of that standard is it increased your accrued vacation and sick leave liability by about $132,000. So not a huge increase to the city, but there is a slight increase to the city on that. So wanted to let you know that those were out there. And then also we'd let you know that if we had any disagreements, difficulties, anything like that with management, and I always say no news is good news on that. If we ever did have something with Brian or Jasper or anybody at the city, we'd let you know if we had any issues with conducting the audit, which we didn't have any. So as far as the actual audit results, the city's received an unmodified or a clean audit opinion. That's the highest level of assurance that you can receive. And that's really the opinion that you want to see is unmodified. As part of the audit, we also look at your internal controls. We do not provide an opinion on your internal controls. Our responsibility is to let you know if we identify any deficiencies, which we did not have. Those would come in the form of a material weakness or a significant deficiency, and we did not identify anything of those when we did our testing this year. We also do look at Minnesota legal compliance. That is something the Office of the State Auditor requires us to do for local governments. This year, we did have one item that fell into that as a compliance exception related to when cities have contracts when there's payment of wages involved. So typically it's repair and maintenance type contracts, road projects, resurfacing projects. The city is supposed to obtain what is called a contractor's withholding affidavit prior to final settlement. That's an affidavit that the contractor submits to the city to say, we've properly collected and remitted all of our payroll taxes that we have to for the city or for this project. There was a small resurfacing project that the city just didn't get that prior to the final payment was that. It was subsequently obtained after the fact, but it just wasn't obtained prior to final settlement. So no issues with any of the testing. You know, we still found that the city obtained it, just the timing of it didn't match when it was supposed to be obtained. So overall, very positive on the results for the city. Now, when we look at what we call emerging issues, these are some of those new governmental accounting standards that are coming out really over the next 2 years. So the nice part is the statement number 102 for the December 31st, 2025 audit. It's actually going to be should be a fairly easy standard to adopt. It's just note disclosure related, and that's it. What that standard wants us to do is it wants us to start including in the footnotes to your financial statements more about the actual operating environment in which the city operates. So are you subject to levy limits, debt limits, bargaining agreements where there might be unsettled contracts? Those are the types of disclosures they want us to start including. So now the readers can get a better understanding. What is the operating environment in which we're in now? So that's all information that the city typically has readily available. So it's just a matter of putting it into a format that's going to fit nicely in the financial statement. So pretty easy one on that one. In 2026, there's going to be 2 standards that are applicable. The first one, 103, is going to have a little bit of additional work to it. This is one where it's the first of 2 standards that are going to be impacting the financial statements now over the next several years. The one that's going to go along with this isn't even out of preliminary draft stage at the GASB board yet, so it's still several years off, but this is really the first of 2. This one is going to be looking at and actually reworking what we call the management discussion and analysis. That's one of the very first sections of your financial statements, and really gives a narrative form of what's happened to the city over the last year. Why did revenues increase or decrease, and vice versa? So this is going to just change what's included in that management discussion and analysis. The other part is it's going to change some of the layout of your enterprise fund financial statements or your proprietary funds, and it's going to introduce a new category called subsidies. So the easiest example of a subsidy to an enterprise fund is if the city had to levy for water or sewer or something like that. That's the types of subsidies that they're talking about. So wouldn't expect a ton of impact for that one on the city outside of the reworking of the management discussion and analysis. And then finally, statement 104, that's going to be applicable for December 31st, 2026. That's another one where over the last couple of years, some of these new standards that we've had come out, the lease standard, the subscription-based IT arrangement standard, they started to introduce new terms and types of assets, right to use assets, things like that. That statement's going to be really kind of bringing together all these old statements and saying, here's how you should actually present them in the financial statements now. So it's not going to change the calculations of any of those. It's just how should we put this all together so it's in a consistent and concise spot for all local governments across the country. So just cleaning up that part of it. So, and with that, I will turn it over to Grace to go through some of the financial results.
Thank you.
Right, moving to the fund financial results. Starting on this slide, this graph shows the total unassigned fund balance in the general fund for the past 5 years in the light blue, as well as the unassigned fund balance as a percentage of expenditures in the general fund for the past 5 years in the dark blue. The city had budgeted spend downs of fund balance in 21 and 22, as well as for 2024. But as you can see, the percentage still remained relatively consistent with the past 2 years. In 2024, the general fund unassigned fund balance as a percentage of expenditures was 39.9%, as compared to 42.6% in 2023. The total fund balance in the general fund as of December 31st, 24 was $3,009,494, as compared to $3,106,724 as of December 31st, 2023. So a slight decrease there, but that was budgeted for as a spend down during 2024. All right, this graph shows the total general fund revenue by the different sources, as well as the percentages of those sources as compared to total revenues. The categories we have here are property taxes, license and permits, intergovernmental user fees, and all other revenues, which would include your investment income. I want to highlight again that we're showing the ratios of the total revenue, and the changes in those ratios do not necessarily reflect a significant or large increase or decrease in your actual total revenues from the prior years. As you can see, property taxes are the primary revenue source for the city, and the next largest category is license and permits. The city saw an increase in the total number of building permits issued for new single-family homes, which went from 107 building permits to 128 in 2024. And the city is expecting continued controlled growth for 2025 and beyond. Here we have a summary of the general fund expenditures by the different categories or departments, and shows again the percentages of those compared to your total expenditures. In terms of things to highlight here, as you can really see, the percentages coming from each of those departments is pretty spot on each year. This is great to see as it makes it kind of pretty predictable for what your expenditures will be, which is a result of a very well managed and operated budget by the city. This slide is a combination of the three previous slides for unassigned fund balance, total revenue, and total expenditures in the general fund. Total revenue for the general fund for 2024 was $6,703,811, as compared to $6,713,307 in 2023. So overall, not a very large change there, only about a $10,000 decrease in your total revenue for the general fund. Total expenditures for the general fund for 2024 were $6,817,176, as compared to $6,142,813 in 2023. So there was roughly a $675,000 increase in your total expenditures in the general fund, which was mainly related to higher salary and benefit labor costs from negotiated labor contracts that went into effect during 2024. Moving on, now we're going to take a look at the city's enterprise funds, which includes the water, sewer, and stormwater fund. On this slide, we are comparing the unrestricted net position in each of these funds, which is basically the net position not including the net investment in capital assets, so the net position that the city could actually use or spend. Both the sewer fund and stormwater fund have remained relatively consistent the past couple of years, whereas you can see the water fund, the unrestricted net position actually decreased. This was due to increases in expenses and engineering services, along with additional maintenance and utility costs. Operating revenues in the water fund also decreased from the prior year due to there being greater rainfall, which caused lower usage of water during the year. This graph summarizes the activity in the water fund. The red line is what the water fund's operating income would be if you added back in depreciation, which would get you closer to a cash basis since the city has already expended those funds. The greenish yellow line is the water fund's actual operating income that you will see in your financial statements. The other two bar columns are operating revenues and operating expenses. As you can see, expenses increased from the prior year due to those additional engineering services, maintenance, and utility costs. And again, the operating revenues decreased due to lower water usage caused by greater rainfall in 2024, as well as there being more connection fees in 2023. So overall, all of these factors are what led to the decrease in the operating income for the water fund. Next, we have the same graph, but summarizing for the activity in the sewer fund. Looking at the greenish yellow line again, the city has had slight operating losses the past 5 years. The main driver in the operating loss for the current year were expenses. Expenses increased in the sewer fund due to an increase in operating and maintenance supplies costs, whereas your revenues remained in line with the previous year. Here we have the activity for the stormwater fund. This year, the stormwater fund did not operate at a loss and had operating income of $15,452. This can be attributed to the increase in revenues from the number of stormwater accounts the city had compared to the prior year. This slide summarizes the city's total debt-related payments in '24, as well as the projected debt-related payments for the next 5 years. The total debt in 2024 was $24,919,000, as compared to $22,547,364 in 2023. Total principal payments on the city's long-term debt was $1,230,000, and the city also issued $590,000 of general obligation equipment certificates and $3,510,000 of general obligation water revenue bonds, which were issued in October of '24. This is data from the Office of the State Auditor. The 2024 data is not available yet due to ongoing audits, reporting forms, etc., so we're using 2023 data here. This graph compares your total taxes per capita to the neighboring cities of Minnetrista. As you can see, in 2023, you are below your neighboring cities, which has been a similar trend in other years as well. Here we have another per capita slide for the city's current expenditures. So this backs out any capital expenditures or debt-related payments. Each city has its own needs, and expenditures can obviously vary year to year. So take this slide for what it's worth. But as you can see, you're pretty comparable to your cities on the right side of the graph, and that there are a few outliers, as you see in Orono and Long Lake. And that concludes our presentation. Thanks again for having us here tonight, and we welcome any questions or comments that you may have.
Thank you. Questions? Comments?
Would it be possible to get the PowerPoint?
I was just going to ask that. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And send that to the council too. That would be great. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, and we'll look forward to next year.
All good news.
All right.
Nice job, Ryan.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I want to thank obviously the finance staff, Angie and Renee, do a lot of hard work for the audit too, as well as obviously Clifton, Larson, Allen puts in a lot of time and their effort. Yeah, so it's a group project, I guess, or a group team. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So next we'll move on to persons to be heard. Mr. Funderburk, are you okay not commenting right now? I mean, okay. Thank you. Then we'll move on to consent agenda items. Are there any you wish to remove? Otherwise, they consist of A, approve our work session meeting minutes from May 5th, 2025. I had just a couple minor little adjustments, nothing major, just minor little things, so that's why I didn't pull it. Approve our city council regular meeting minutes from May 5th, 2025. C is approve the Minnetrista City Council and Commission Code of Conduct. We got not contact, but conduct. And then the next one is approve a purchase of one SL1000 PPA portable parallel analyzer and testing chem keys from Core & Main. It was interesting to read that, and I think that's a great purchase. It'll save time and energy and be more accurate, so that's wonderful. Another one is approve the claims. F is approving an agreement with Waste Management of Minnesota Incorporated for the recycling services. with those changes that we talked about at our work session. And G is award a park trail overlay paving to Dunsmore Asphalt. And H is approve a manhole adjustment and easement at 5345 Cedar Point Road. And I have to see if there's any more. Hold on. I should go to page 1. And then I is accept the bid and quotes and award the contracts for the pavement maintenance project. It's city project number 03-25. Any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve consent agenda items A through I?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Govern. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Lacy. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion
Madam Mayor.
passes. And then we have to accept.
Yeah.
Thank you. And next we would also, I'd like to also ask the council to accept, and it's just receive and accept the 2024 financial audit that was given to you in your packet, as well as a presentation. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Lacy, and Mr. Vickery seconded that. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. Thank you, Brian. And thank you for your work too on that, and staff's work too. I'm assuming you applied for the Gatsby Award again?
Yes, we'll be applying
Okay.
for the award. That'll be, I think, our 17th, 18th year getting.
I know,
So
it's
been
quite a few years, so good. So next, we don't have any public hearings. We'll move on to our business items, and that's approve ordinance number 499, amending chapter 11 of City Code related to farm animals. I'll hand that over to David.
Yeah, thank you,
Mr.
Madam
Abel? Mayor
Mayor and members of council. As you're probably well aware, we've had several discussions about residential backyard chickens at, up to this point, they've been at city council work sessions. At your most recent work session, the council did ask staff to bring back a draft ordinance allowing 3 hens on residential lots that are at least 1/2 acre in size. We did attach ordinance number 499 as part of your staff report this evening. That captures, I believe, the specific language that the general majority of the council seem to agree upon and have considered, put that for your consideration this evening. Again, it's the 3 hens, no roosters on residential lots, at least 1/2 acre, provided that hens are kept in a fully enclosed, fully contained, rodent-free environment is the proposed language for the exemption to Chapter 11, dealing with farm animals of City Code.
Thank you, Mr. Abel. Question?
Did we want to include something about HOAs being able to prohibit chickens or subject to it in that ordinance, or is that implied?
It's implied. I mean, they can do, they can be more restrictive as they please, and there's really no correlation between city code and what they would like to do. So
As long as it's more restrictive.
correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Right. Any other questions? Any?
Well, I'm concerned about this because I think chickens really are farm animals. And, I looked up the CDC and the University of Minnesota Ag Department, and they're very concerned, of course, about avian flu. And, if you have somebody in the backyard with their chickens and you have wild birds, mixing with the chickens. And I just think that, the average pet owner, is just not going to take care of them properly. And so I have that concern that I think once we open the door on this, it's really, it could really cause some serious problems. You're actually supposed to report to the CDC if you have illness in your flock, and it could then mean destroying the flock and anybody's chickens around it. So they're really serious about this stuff. So I just have raised concerns about it. I know it's a popular thing, but
No, I understand. So we put a couple things in place, fully enclosed, number one, so they can't get out or go elsewhere. And again, it'll be an ordinance that's enforced via a neighbor calling in, maybe making a complaint. And if that's the case, then we can go in and we can take a look and maybe modify their actions, if you will.
And that's only if they allow us on the property, correct?
Correct.
I think that's a good point that Peter made. I did a lot of research calling our neighboring cities and said, how many complaints have you had? I really looked into this, and it was virtually none. In fact, I spoke to St. Bonnie and they said there's essentially no complaints. So I have to believe we would fall in the same category. And I think we can revisit this in 12 months. But I think we've had some really passionate people in the community say, I moved from Minneapolis to St. Bonnie or to Minnetrista, and I can have a couple chickens. So I really feel that this is important to try to let our residents have what they really want. And I think we have enough restrictions in place that, again, I understand the concern with the illness of the chickens, but I think people that do this are pretty serious. It's a big job. It's not like it's not an easy. I thought about it. I thought maybe I'll do this, but it's a big commitment. It's financial.
You
It
can't
takes a lot of work.
travel.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't think people enter into it lightly.
Well, these are, they're saying guidelines of, wearing different clothes when you go out to check on the chickens and, of course, not letting your kids play with the chickens and, use gloves. There's some really serious health issues here that I think a lot of people are viewing them as pets, and that, could be dangerous to the
Sure.
household.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? So I think I understand we have differing opinions, and that's good. And it's good to hear what you have to say too. I know you weren't here last time. And I think one of the things we can also do if this passes is maybe have something in our newsletter, maybe even occasional little articles about how to properly take care of chickens. We could have something on our website. There's all kinds of, factual things that we can tell our residents. So, but again, we tried to make it so that it's a half acre, which is a fairly large lot, so that they wouldn't be right up against their neighbor's house, and restricting it to no more than 3 chickens. So it's not like a huge flock. So hopefully, and again, I think as Councilmember Lacey said, we can revisit this in 12 months. And so if this becomes an issue, then we can say, okay, nobody else can have chickens, and we're going to stop it. And those that currently have, maybe they're grandfathered in, but no more, so you can always do something like that. So I don't think we want to expand it. So
I thought we discussed how close they could be to the property line.
we did, but then I think we thought to be able to enforce that would be real difficult, because we discussed lot line, how close they can be to the lot line, and then we discussed screening. And I think ultimately we decided it would be real hard to enforce that. Was there?
Correct. That's my recollection as well, Madam Mayor. With screening and setbacks were discussed, but we talked about the difficulties of if we don't have permission to come on property, different angles, third level windows looking down. How, is that you can view that from up there? Staff can't go up there and look down. But that was my recollection as well, Madam Mayor, there's some difficulties with actually enforcing some of those types of things.
Yeah, I think the enforceable part will be if they're fully enclosed, if they have 3 chickens, those that you can pretty well see from most, like if a neighbor calls, the neighbor has to be able to count them. And if the neighbor can count them, the neighbor can say, well, come and count them for yourself on my property. So you can see that. The distance might be a little more difficult, but.
Well, I think in general, this is going to be hard to enforce because
Right.
they have to be allowed on the property.
If you walk up to someone's door though and
Well,
not.
hold on, let her finish.
If you have them fully enclosed, when the police go to your neighbor's property and then the police go, well, can we come on to your property and count them? And they say no, then.
But the neighbor's going to have to be able to count them in order to file a
out,
complaint.
like the day before or something. So, and then if the person who has them never lets the police onto the property, this is going to be hard to enforce.
It may be, but it may not be an issue too. We don't know.
I don't think there's going to be a giant rush on buying chickens.
Not, but,
So.
all right. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve ordinance amending Chapter 11 of the City Code related to farm animals?
So moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Second?
Second. Any other questions, comments, arguments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
That would be Brian, Claudia, myself. All those not in favor,
Nay.
that would be Kathleen, Ms. Refkin, and Mr. Vickery. Motion passes 3-2. So thank you for that. And will this then, do we have to pass this by title and summary?
But short enough, Madam Mayor, that we can just publish. what we
Okay.
have.
All right. Thank you. All right. With that, we're going to then move on to administrative items, staff reports.
I can just give a brief update about Trista Day. That was on Saturday. It was a cloudy day. The turnout wasn't as good as I think previous years, but I think we'll have our post Trista Day meeting and figure out maybe some other ideas that we can try for next year to see if we can get more people. That's all I have.
That's all you have. Any other?
I believe Gary has something.
All right.
Kind of a water update.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, Council, I'll give you an update on wells 8 and 9. Drilling's been going well. I mean, they are a little bit behind from a couple weeks of really cold weather this winter. And right now we've drilled down to the Mount Simon. It's the formation is there. We needed an extra round of blasting. Normally they can develop the aquifer area with 2 rounds, but they wanted to do a third. The cam went down. They requested a third. Talking with AE2S, we agreed, let's do that. The sand removal is taking place right now, so that's you're seeing the mountain of sand that's in there. So what happens is the aquifer's blasted, then they have to airlift all the sand out of there because we need a big open area for that pump to sit in. So hoping to finish the sand removal this week, and then we can begin test pumping. So what the test pumping will do is give us, a good accurate flow rate, plus then we can sample, and that testing that they'll do on that water will be what the filters at the treatment plant for the media that we'll need, what's in that water, what's got to come out. So that'll entail what the media content of the filters at the plant will be. Like I say, I mean, we had a couple weeks of cold weather there, heavy clay soil they ran into when they were doing some drilling. So it took a little bit longer. So they are about a month behind schedule. They were supposed to be done in May. So looking now here, hopefully the end of June, they are moving the rig over to get going on the other one. Once that's complete, that's half the depth of this one because you're going into the Jordan.
How deep did they go in the Mount Simon?
560, I think it was, they ended up. So
Okay.
I think it was. Don't quote me on that as a positive, but I know it was deep. This one's only going to be half, probably go around 300,
Yeah.
if at max. So and that one will be a little easier to develop. It's not that aquifer, from what we're told, is not as sandy and soft as that other one. So and that one will be a screened well anyways, so that'll be a lot nicer to work with. So that should go a lot faster. So
Imagine they ran into clay soils in Minnetrista.
yeah, well, it was a little heavier than what they normally run into. I mean, they kind of expect it up here, but what happens is it's the heavier clay soil that won't allow the water from that they're using as a lubricant to loosen up a little bit. So it slows them down in the process. It's similar to when they pull a pipe through, doing a boring.
Yeah.
They use that as kind of that sliding material, and they could not, it just slowed them down. So, but they are moving forward with it, and let's hopefully they get going on that one.
Gary, when they pull the water, when they do the testing, how much water are they pumping out, and where does that water go?
That water's all going right now to the holding pond for the HOA there. That they're going to pump for that. So they'll pump quite a bit of water out of there just to get the sand, out of there that's in there, kind of clear it up, and and then start pumping.
Okay.
Once it gets clear, then they can stop. Then they'll do their water testing and stuff, and then we can, then they'll kind of let everything go down. They'll video it one more time. And then we, hopefully by that time they'll have the other one, well established and in. So there's a mountain of sand that you can see there. That's our property, so we're going to take as much as we can. It's great for us for bedding culverts,
Okay.
water main breaks like we had today, to bed that stuff. So I'll give you an update. I just found out from the guys they are
Let's see.
done.
Okay, tell us
For those
about
you
the
don't know,
water
we had
main break.
we had a water main break on Halstead, one of the new houses that were going in. The moratorium's up. They can connect to the city water. Unfortunately, when they were connecting to the main, when they were drilling, they cracked the pipe, which spidered it out,
Oh, no.
causing a major leak. So we ended up having to shut off everything from basically by the boat launch, everything to the central system. So that left Pinnacle,
South Saunders,
Cardinal
North
Cove,
Saunders.
and all the
Yeah.
Saunders without water. That's why we need to look at looping, so we don't have this situation.
Right.
We ended up opening the water connections with Mound, which, as we all know, Mound water is not the best, but it's better than nothing. We were losing pressure in the system. We didn't want to do a Bohill order, so we opened the interconnect. So they just got done doing all their flushing, getting rid of all the wonderful Mound water, so everything should be good to go.
How many complaints did you get?
We got a lot of calls on that right away, that water also, but I don't think they took too many. I think when I talked to Darcy up front, they only received a couple for bad water complaints.
Okay,
But once they explain what's going on,
okay.
so we'll be going back out doing a little bit more flushing tomorrow. We took 7 bacteria samples today, have them dropped off at Ingle Water Testing. We'll take 7 more tomorrow just to make sure everything's good with the system, but everything's back up and running. We had another crew come in, Valley Rich out of Chaska came in to take care of the project. That'll all be charged to the contractor that was doing this. So they're gonna have
Ouch.
a big bill to pay.
Ouch.
So the extra blasting that they did out for the well, is that like another additional charge then?
Yeah, it'll be additional charge. There's a line item in there for, that. So they normally pad it a little heavy, so I don't know how much additional will be, but normally we get by with 2 rounds in the airlifting. So it's the airlifting that's more expensive than the actual blasting itself. So it's just an extra airlifting that'll be a little bit, but it'll be spelled out in there. When you see the paid voucher come through, it'll show on there exactly what the extra was. So.
Okay. Oh, good. Thanks. And then I think, are we going to see an update or even plans and specs for the treatment plant?
Yes, that's funny you bring that up. So on June 2nd, there will be a part of the meeting will be AE2S will provide some renderings of the plant, some other internal drawings and things like that. You'll have the option at that time to authorize the ad for bid. The actual plans, final plans won't be done until the end of June, but that allows us to post it and then have those potential contractors start engaging with AE2S.
I was wondering if it might be helpful or beneficial for the council to visit the site at all. I mean,
I drive by it every day.
I know.
Not much to see there. Pile of sand.
Okay. I just
If
throw that out there.
if you'd like to, I mean, I think we'd be happy to take any or all of you,
if you're
up
interested.
to 2 at a time out there.
A bus tour.
That's true, yeah. So talk to Jasper if you're interested. I just thought I'd throw it.
Yeah. If you're interested, I mean, like Gary said, it's a pile of sand and some, a well drilling rig right now. But we have a meeting with, Three Rivers talking about access here, I think this week, Thursday.
Okay.
So we're plugging along. So on the June 2nd will be a big meeting to look at the plant. I mean, it's nothing fancy. I'll tell you that right now.
That's okay. We have to keep the costs down.
So it's, and then we'll consider authorizing ad for bid if they feel comfortable enough. If you want a little bit more information or if some things change, things like that, we always have the June 16th meeting to fall back on. But we're kind of getting to the point where we need to probably get it out for bid.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been moving along real well. Today we had our meeting on all the mechanicals today, going over all the duct work and all that stuff. Tomorrow we're doing electrical. So they are really moving forward. There'll be 90% plans here very quickly. So once this phase is through, so.
Okay. And then just one other question. I talked to Jasper about this earlier. Are we going to look at possibly water tower renovations next year. So we can talk offline about that, but
We're
let's just
hoping
think,
to,
think about that.
we've talked about it,
Yeah.
so I think we'll make some arrangements here. I think it might be a possibility that we can
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, there's, if I may, there's a couple steps. You'll see a task order from AE2S coming here probably in June to kind of model the system and see what we actually need. If you remember, we have 3 more interconnects with St. Bonnie that aren't metered. Hopefully we only need about 1 or 2 more to put a meter in to be able to serve both communities well. Once we figure that out, then we can authorize, go out for bid, that type of thing. And if we can get that done this fall, and the interconnect agreement, really, it's there between St. Bonnie and us. It's just we have to discuss a price per 1,000 gallons. So
Okay.
I think it's
that'll
all
be
lined
fun.
up so that we can get this done by this fall and potentially bid something out in the winter
Yeah.
to get it done next year.
Okay,
If everything lines up, which I think it is.
good. All right. Any other questions? Any other? So Brian, are you going to be at the Planning Commission meeting?
Yes,
It probably will be a short meeting, real short meeting. So
best
you're-
kind.
just, should we mention your idea about the Parks Commission meeting on the, I mean,
You certainly can, Madam Mayor. It's fine.
I was talking with David, Mr. Abel, and he had said that last time, I think, Ms. Lacy, you were at the Parks and Planning Commission meetings. And the reason is the Park Commission met at 6 and then the Planning Commission met at 7. And that worked out quite well. And David was just saying, maybe we should just kind of revert to that and do that. And I said, I think that's an excellent idea.
Mhm.
It saves staff a night, it saves council a night.
Went quickly.
And so if you're all amenable to that, do we need to make an ordinance change?
Would be to our calendar, correct?
Okay, just to our calendar?
We'd have to check our ordinance. I
Check
think
your ordinance.
In the Park Commission, it
Mhm.
says
Yeah.
that as
So-
well. Yep.
So we could make an ordinance change, which would just be a day, and then we can make the calendar change. And maybe can you bring that back in June?
Absolutely.
Because then the sooner we started, I think the easier it is for everybody.
Mhm.
So I thought it was an excellent idea, good idea, thank you. All right, and then any other council reports?
I have an update.
Yeah.
No. I attended the St. Bonnie Fire Commission meeting last Thursday, the 15th. They have added 2 new firemen for 2025, although they lost 2, so they stay at 25. They got 12 applicants because of the sign on their board. 2 passed the initial stage of just the interview, like not the pre-interview paperwork, and then those 2 did not show up for their interviews.
Yeah.
So they are staying at 25. They applied for and got a matching grant from the DNR for a ventilation fan. The total of that is $5,000, so they got half of that from the DNR. They got it 3 weeks ago. It's battery-operated exhaust fan that they bring to the sites to move the air, and it can also be plugged in, so they're really excited about it. Apparently those things are like this big, so they're very excited. They now have 3 firefighters who can use the thermal imaging drone. It works really, really well. Chief told us he flew it above the building and he could like zoom in and see the writing on the pipes outside. So he was very excited about that, and he's looking forward to their next training where they'll get to practice with it. They haven't actually got to use it on anything yet, which is good in theory. They are in need of a new chief's vehicle. So we agreed that he should get on the list for it since it can take about a year. There's only 2 dealers in the state that are on the state approved list that give them the deal on it. The one they'll use is up in Grand Rapids. So we approved it at the commission, and then he brings it back to St. Bonnie because they have to fill out a form at their next council meeting. So that'll be in their June one. The total cost all in is $85,000, which they have the money for it in the CIP. So there won't be a bill or a bond or anything for that. They have the money. They are also in need of a new pump for the pump skid gas rig. The vehicle itself is a 2006, but it has 14,000 miles on it, but it's in good shape. So they're not going to replace the vehicle, just the pump. And that's $20,000, and they have that money in the CIP. The contract reserve is currently at $34,000, and the chief would like to keep the money in the reserve to use it to pay for some new extrication gear. Minnetrista's portion of that is $23,000. So using it to pay for the gear versus giving it back to the city makes sense since they need the gear. I don't know if you got an email from their city administrator about that.
Not yet.
Okay.
It'll have to come back to the council in form of a resolution or whatever. Yeah, I think.
Yes, I think I sent it up to you too. Yeah, I did. Yeah. It was about a,
Yeah,
yeah.
to
Okay.
keep it in the reserve to use it. So that's what he's going to use it for.
Yep.
So far, St. Bonnie Fire has responded to 102 calls this year, which is up from 86 last year at this time. 57 of those were Minnetrista. We discussed the 2026 budget for just St. Bonnie Fire in case the JPA does not move forward. The St. Bonnie City Council member and myself agreed that St. Bonnie should start to budget for a full-time chief starting July 1st versus Jan 1. This has a budget impact of about $73,000 versus the full year, which is $156,000. That includes salary and benefits, so that's the full cost. I did find out from Chief Eric, he will not be the full-time chief, but he does have a guy currently that would be a good one. So he's wants to stay with his business longer and doesn't want to be the full-time chief. The firefighters are getting a $1 per hour raise for 2026. The new wage will be $15.35.
Wow.
I'm not running into a fire for that.
Really.
I applaud them for doing it.
Yes, exactly. For $15 an hour. Wow.
Their chief's also budgeting wages for the events they go to, which makes sense. They spend a lot of hours doing the community events and everything around there. So for the first time, they're going to budget some wages in for those.
So they don't have to always volunteer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The total budget for 2026 for St. Bonnie will be $611,323, which I'm guessing you got or will be getting, or do you need the paperwork on it?
I don't think I've seen it.
Well,
You
I
don't have
haven't seen it yet.
yeah.
No.
Okay.
It'll come.
Um,
I think they have to have it in by July 1st.
Yeah. And then we discussed the JPA briefly, just to give Watertown Township an update. Laketown Township was not at the meeting. Watertown and Laketown are going to contract in if we do a JPA. So it's just a high level overview. Just let them know that the May meeting was canceled. And Chief feels that if the financial formula isn't agreed on by June, JPA will be on hold because everybody has to set their budgets for the next year and can't get it done. Apparently there's some issues with the pension funds that mound and how theirs is set up, and it will take additional time as well, and it could possibly require legislative approval, which would delay it till mid-year next year then if that requires it. It basically comes down to whether or not they combine them versus one just taking over the other one, because if they combine them, it needs legislative approval. If they just put one into the other one, then they can do it, and it would just require a name change, and so there's that. But Mound's pension is set up differently than St. Bonnie's. St. Bonnie's just has a full payout. Mound still has some old ones that have annuities, so there's that. And yeah. And we'll find that out in
And the
June.
chiefs are working on
Yes.
it. They're
Yeah,
working
they're
on
working
it.
on it. They're figuring it out, so.
And then the fire partnership meeting, which was supposed to happen tomorrow, has been canceled and will meet in June. Because the fire chiefs and the administrators are working on all of the, nuts and bolts,
Substance.
basically, of how it would operate and how it would all work together. So we'll update you on those. And then we'll be meeting, the three of us will be meeting and talking about formulas and trying to figure out what would be acceptable for the majority of the group. So
Will be next week.
I'm glad I let you go first. For me, I just wanted to ask that we bring back the discussion on the Gillespie Center in our June 2nd meeting. Got some.
I think we have, hold on just a second. I think we have a pretty full work session on the 2nd, because don't we have the interviews for the cameras and stuff?
We do have that. We're planning on starting at 5 camera system presentations, and then there's one other item on there for a drainage discussion for Gary.
So what I would suggest then is bringing it back to the next meeting. But here's the thing, I asked what we have on the meeting for the 16th. If we don't have any items on the 16th other than that, could we bring it back to the first meeting, which would actually be the second meeting in July?
Oh,
Because we'd have to come here just for that.
yeah, which I don't think it's, I think I've got 5 points to make. It'll go quickly. And we are the only city out of 5 that has not stepped up to the plate. And they're doing it this year. They're not waiting till next year. So I feel like I can make the points quickly.
That's
and
why I don't want to
concisely.
do it as the only item. on the
On the
16th.
2nd? You think it'll take that much time on the 2nd to discuss?
Yes, because they need to get a whole bunch of information to us, which I don't think that they'll be able to get. We need to know what the revenue streams are, how much they are. We need to know what their financials are. We need to know also what their financial situation is in terms of what their annual revenues, what their annual expenses are. We've asked for it in the past and they haven't gotten it to us. So I think by putting it off until the July meeting, we'll give them a little more time to put all those numbers together. Because if we don't have those numbers, I'm not prepared to make any kind of, I'm not prepared to make a donation because this is a 501c3. And if they show a need, an actual need, that's one thing. But if they're going to go belly up and disperse without our help, that's one thing. But if they're in a good financial position, regardless of whether the other communities are contributing, we really need to think hard on how we're spending our tax dollars. So I would highly recommend that we send them an email telling them exactly what we need and having them get that to us. And I don't think, and if they get it to us by the 16th, I think staff will have to decide whether it's going to be a very short conversation or a long conversation.
I guess what I'm hearing from you is you don't feel the city has any kind of responsibility to help support our local senior center.
I think the city has to take a really serious look and have a policy about contributing to 501c3s. And are we going to contribute to private organizations? And are we going to have a process by which to do that? I support our seniors, don't get me wrong, but there's other ways of supporting them versus giving tax dollars to an organization. That's all I'm saying. And that can be part of the discussion.
Sure.
That can be part of the discussion.
But with all due respect, there's a difference between a senior community center and a 501c3.
Right. But that's what they are. Just saying. Okay.
Okay.
But so our staff will let them know all of the information that we need. And then once we receive that information, we can determine which meeting it can be on. So we're not saying it's not going to be on.
Okay.
We're not saying it won't be discussed. We're just saying this is the information we need. Once we have that, how long will it take for a discussion and which meeting should we put it on?
If that's the direction, I could.
A work session.
Yeah, it'll be a work session. I think I'll send an email out to the group, and if there's any specific questions that you'd like answered, you can send them my way, and then I'll work with Rhonda at the Gillespie Center to kind of gather that information. If we can get it on the 16th, we'll get it on the 16th.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Brian, anything?
No, I went to the state of the county. There was really no substantial information provided during that meeting relevant to Minnetrista.
Thanks for going.
Yeah.
They are doing a lot of road projects out here, though.
Yeah.
So just,
Which ironically, they really just kind of glossed over that. They talked,
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not
All
their
right.
priority.
Madam Mayor, I've had several people in the community ask me about the camera structures on County Road 44, and I believe there's one on Highway 7 as well. And I'm wondering,
Cameras?
Chief Squires
yes,
will answer
Chief.
that. Yes.
And could we do maybe could we address that on our website? You've seen these things, this is what they are.
So you're talking about the cameras that are looking for distracted drivers?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, we can certainly add some to the website just to
Because,
The
articulate.
ones on 44 are the metered thing for, instead of having a flagger. That's what those are.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's not the looking at you.
No,
Those are instead of having people standing there.
correct. Yeah, the distracted driving is more in the South Lake, Minnetonka area. So around 41 in Highway 7. So we do have flock cameras which record license plates coming and going, but we don't have the distracted driving one in our city at this point.
And then I also got asked the question, why is Minnetrista spying on me? And I said, it's kind of to protect us if there was a crime situation and we could see who was coming and going. And so, can you address that? Could we have something our constituents to read about why we have cameras on them?
Yeah, yes, we certainly can. The cameras that we currently have, the flock cameras, just for the record, they just record license plates. So they're not looking inside the vehicle itself. It's not even looking at the driver. It's basically looking for stolen vehicles, missing persons. And then if we did have a major crime, we could see what vehicles were coming and going from the area at the time. But there's nothing that's actually looking inside the vehicle at all. It's just recording the license plates coming and going.
And then once the picture is taken, they're not even really saved unless there's an incident, right? I mean, can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, that's what they're like.
Yep, absolutely, Madam Mayor, Council. It's retained for 30 days. It is audited every 2 years. And so if we did have a crime in the area, then we could go back and see who was coming and going at that time. But if there was no crime, then it just gets deleted after 30 days. If it did have a hit, for instance, if a stolen vehicle came by or a missing person, we'd get an immediate hit on that. So that's really more the purpose for it is looking for vehicles that are stolen or people with warrants, missing persons and whatnot. And then the secondary usage would be if there's a crime in the area, we can go back and just see who was coming and going. But again, it does, our camera system, the flock, is not looking inside the vehicles at all for anything. It's just recording the plates as they go by. And you can see the exterior of the vehicle, obviously, but not the interior. So.
Thank you.
Can those records be subpoenaed in civil cases in Minnesota?
That's a good question. Because I know there are people, private places, like apartment buildings and whatnot, that have flock cameras. So I would imagine that they likely could be subpoenaed, but I'm not 100% sure. We haven't encountered that as of yet.
Oh.
Good question. All right. So anything? All right. I attended Northwest League and it was interesting. We had a TIF 101, but it was like a lot of information in a very short time. And TIF is confusing. So at some point, if we're interested, and it was a gentleman from Ellers. So not Todd, but Todd could give a presentation like that. But at some point, and it's basically for commercial development and or like blighted properties that you might want to redevelop. That's generally what it's used for. But it was very interesting. And at some point, who knows, down the road, we might want to have a special presentation during workshop, but not this year, but down the road. But it's very confusing and a lot of information. So it's just a tool in the toolbox. Again, it's more for development and redevelopment. So. Other than that, the fire partnership meeting has been postponed and that's about it. So if there is nothing else, then we can be adjourned if there is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Refkin. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Vickery. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. 5-0.
Hey, Allie? There, Steve County's fundraising for education here, if you could, you want to put that on the website or something? Yes.
Thank you. Can I give you my $10 for the